The tragic life of Dong-eun from The Glory touched us all, but did you know that her story is actually based on horrific real-life events? Recently, Kim Eun-suk, the writer of the drama, revealed what her inspiration was for this tear-jerking story. The very first source that inspired her to write the screenplay is actually a thought-provoking conversation she had with her daughter. Eun-suk revealed that her daughter is a sophomore in high school and that she was worried that throughout her school years, her daughter would get unwanted attention or become misunderstood because of her. What really took Eun-suk aback is when her daughter asked her if she'd be more heartbroken if she were to fatally hurt someone in school or if someone were to fatally hurt her. Eun-suk explained that this is what really got her writing, saying that it was hellish for her. The story unfolded in her head in that instance, and that's how she began writing the story for The Glory. That conversation was already shocking enough, but it only gets more sinister from here. It turns out that in order to really make the story as authentic as possible, Eun-suk took inspiration from real-life cases in which victims had similar experiences as portrayed in the series. While watching the first episode of the show and the horrific things that were displayed in it, lots of viewers confessed that they were sick to their stomach. They believed it was too much and not necessary to watch. Little did they know that most of the brutality depicted in those scenes were based on two specific real-life cases. We probably all still remember the scene in which Dong-eun gets hurt by Yeonjin and her squad. They even went as far as to burn Dong-eun's body with a hot iron, which is something that hasn't left the minds of the audience ever since they witnessed it. This particular scene actually took inspiration from a real-life case that happened in 2006 in South Korea. More specifically, it happened at an all-girls school at Tongju Girls Middle School, and it's an absolutely heart-shattering story. A student, who's referred to as Jong or Miss J, was continuously tormented by another female student named Kim or Miss K. It wasn't light pestering. Kim used unimaginable things to make Jong's middle school experience a very traumatic time in her life. It's reported that Kim would use the fact that Jong hadn't kept a promise to do unthinkable things to her. It said that Kim would repeatedly hit Jong with a baseball bat, extort money from her, scratch her body with a hairpin, and yes, even burn her using a curling iron. Many people believe it's unimaginable that such a young person would go to these lengths to make a peer's life miserable, but it's actually true, and there were some repercussions that eventually led to nothing. At the time, Tongju District Court issued an arrest warrant for Kim, who was only 15 years old. It said that Kim even threatened Jong right when the investigation began. Perhaps it had something to do with her age, but eventually the case was dropped to the side and little measures were taken. This started a rage within South Korea because how could the perpetrator of such unfathomable acts walk freely without facing any consequences? The fact that the authorities weren't able to do much for Jong is quite similar to Dong-eun's story, since none of the adults in her life took her seriously. The Korean media reported that netizens took matters into their own hands and spread personal information such as photos, names, phone numbers, and even addresses of all the students that were the suspected perpetrators. This actually had a huge impact because the families of these students were bombarded with malicious phone calls and were also harassed online. It's also reported that a violation of human rights was filed since the basic human rights of the student in the school were compromised. Eun-suk also took inspiration elsewhere, and this time around it was the infamous gasoline case of 2020 that haunts South Korea to this day. This case didn't happen in middle school, nor was it in high school. In fact, the perpetrators of this horrific act were well into their 20s. The terror went down on July 15th in 2020 when the 22-year-old Park was woken up in the middle of the night by a phone call from one of his acquaintances. He was asked by these people to come to an empty lot that was in a secluded place because they wanted to celebrate Park's birthday. Things went south really quickly because once Park arrived, the celebrations took the form of him being tied to a chair in this vacant place. As if that wasn't already horrible enough, they covered Park's head with a hoodie and drenched his entire body in gasoline. Then they grabbed fireworks and ignited them on his knees, only for a spark to then ignite the gasoline on his body. Park suffered severe injuries as his entire body was being burned. In an interview with SBS, Park spoke up about the experience. He said, "Those people saw a burning person tied up, but they just told me to roll over. The fire kept burning my body. I thought I was coming to my end like that." The most sickening part of this horrible night is when Park asked the perpetrators to call him an ambulance, they refused to and said that the place is too dark and gloomy, so the ambulance won't be able to come easily. The outcome of this so-called prank was that Park suffered third-degree burns on over 40% of his body, which will stay with him forever. Of course, his family didn't want the people who did this to just get away with it, so they took legal action. However, just like in most cases, they were left very disappointed. They were forced in a disappointing monetary settlement, and the perpetrators got away with only probation. Park commented on this and said, "The prosecutor said no matter what I did, it would end with probation. situation. I had no choice. Because Park's injuries were so severe, he had to undergo treatment which cost more than $80,000. This is double the amount of money that he got from the monetary settlement. The treatment had to be paid some way, so Park's family reached out to the perpetrators and demanded that they pay the remaining amount of the costs. Unfortunately, this never happened because they said that they didn't have the money to pay for it. As a response, Park's family filed another civil lawsuit, which is still ongoing. In the end, the victim didn't get the justice he deserved in similar ways that Dong-un didn't get hers. This and the fact that they both suffered from burn marks immediately made netizens take to the internet to express their discontent with the way Park's case was handled. They were enraged all over again and took to online communities to demand that Park finally gets his justice. Someone criticized the authorities and commented, "To the prosecutors of this country, how exactly are you calculating these crimes that attempting to end someone's life ends up with probation? Hopefully now that the Glory has brought more attention to this case, these people will get justice with this lawsuit." Another story that isn't said to be direct inspiration for the Glory, but is eerily similar to Dong-un's tale, is an older case from 1991 that shocked the entire population of Japan. The case revolves around a Japanese man who tried to end the lives of about 40 alumni and 5 teachers of the middle school he used to attend. Just like in the Glory, the case is about the revenge the Japanese man tried to take on the people that tormented him throughout his years in middle school. He even targeted the teachers that let all of his suffering throughout the years happen. 12 years after he left that school, the man took over as a secretary and organized some kind of a reunion for both the alumni and the teachers in order to get them all in one place. He prepared 21 bottles of beer for his guests, but these weren't your regular bottles of beer. The man added arsenic to the drinks, which is a very lethal chemical substance if it's consumed. He didn't stop there, as he also put explosives in the bottles of beer. The man had prepared this crime ever since he left middle school, as his whole life revolved around this idea of getting revenge. He even left a letter behind for his friend before he left to commit the crime. In this letter, he explained that he can never forgive those people for humiliating him, hurting him, and treating him as if he was worth nothing. He stated that he was ready to destroy them, and that after that, he would destroy himself. As an ending message, the man wrote that he was carefully preparing, suggesting that he has put a lot of thought into this crime. It's clear that he did actually spend his whole life preparing for this, since he even entered the food chemistry department of his high school because of his interest in chemicals. Eventually, he got loads of licenses in the chemistry field and ended up working in a company that had access to those lethal substances. The question arose that surely out of those 40 ex-students, there must have been some who didn't partake in tormenting him, but according to the man from this case, even those who just stand by the sidelines and watch are also perpetrators. In the end, the man wasn't able to carry out his crime since he got arrested beforehand. Of course, the main similarity between this real-life case and Dong-un's story is that the aftermath of school mistreatment can lead to a person actually spending their whole life seeking revenge. With The Glory, Eun-suk wanted to make sure to depict the horrors of school mistreatment to make everyone aware of how severe the consequences can be. Not only did she take inspiration from the cases such as these, she also made sure to speak with the people who were affected by the crimes and really understand their situations and the trauma that they were forced to grow up with. That was all on the true story behind The Glory. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye!